Well, look at the time. Looks like it's time for another Wise Home Energy Show on the WYSL stations.
Pure energy.
The voice of liberty and the impresario of Wise Home Energy in the studio, as always, as he is monthly, Jeff Flaherty.
Hey, Bob. So excited to be back here. This is my favorite time of year, but this is my favorite time of the month when I get to sit across from the legend and discuss thermodynamics.
Oh, what a nice thing to say.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
If you turn up your radio loud enough, you can hear me blushing.
So, I wanted to tell you, Christmas, I got some gifts, and, I got a sweater, and I loved it. And I also got a scarf. And, boy, that scarf, as I put that around my neck, it reminded me of air sealing because that really stops the air from getting in your neck and down through the body and chilling you down. And I realized, boy, life is a lot like that with thermodynamics. We're looking at how we lose heat and gain heat, and that scarf has been a trusted friend recently, and that's the same thing with what we talk about in homes. The top of the home is so important, and in air sealing that, and people, it's hard to fathom for people to understand that. And I think this time of year they feel it. A lot of times throughout the year the house is dynamic and it's moving around, and temperatures and comfort and humidity. And but this time of year, if your home is not performing well, you feel it. You feel it. And we're getting a lot of those calls where, probably the people knew it or they're new to the home, and they're making those calls, and we start with that diagnostic. It's somewhat frustrating because people want us to run out and fix what they think is the problem, and we know we have to start with the diagnostic. You don't run to your doctor and say, I'd like a knee replacement surgery. The doctor would be committing malpractice if they went and did that. They're going to start with an investigation and find out what is going on. You have pain in your knee, that's the symptom, but let's get to the root cause. And so that's the Wise Home Energy philosophy. We start with the diagnostic and figure out what your goals are.
Got it. Wise Home Energy, malpractice free.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
No, you won't get any knee replacements that you don't need.
That's right. And I want to talk about some of the folks that call in, and there is some malpractice out there. I had a call recently where a client called in and haven't been in the home yet, but she said, we moved here from another state, and we had this house that had a wood burner, and so we got talked into these electric heaters, and finally I got the description, and so they're ductless heat pumps, and we got talked into them, and they're not. The bills are extraordinarily high, and
they have more than one.
So they put. I think she said 3. It was kind of a unique setup. The house hadn't really been lived in for some time. They had bought it, and so no one really knew how the home would work. She said there was a furnace there, but no one had ever really connected it. And so when I talked to her, I said, well, when you got these heat pumps, did you get the utility rebate? She said, no, I didn't get that. I'm thinking, how does, and so I said, would you mind telling me who the company was? And she explained, and I said, yeah, that's a big private equity firm that we're seeing coming down the state. And to me, that's really unethical to sell somebody these heat pumps that you should be eligible for this rebate. You were going to have to do some extra work, but really she probably missed out on $3,000 of rebate. And then talking to her in more in-depthly about her income, she was income eligible. And really, I don't want to rub salt in the wound, but really maybe we could have really done something extraordinary there. Now what we're going to do is go out to the home and see if we can insulate the home and make the equipment work properly. But it's really quite sad. It's fine if no one wants to play in the programs. It takes a lot of paperwork, a lot of effort to stay up to speed on the rules. But to be able to properly fix a home is and to do it responsibly for the home and for the client's budget we can do that. So if you don't play in that, now I respect more the ones where somebody called me recently and said, I need this room, it's cold. And he said he had a HVAC company out, and they said, well, you don't want a heat pump here. It's so small. This is an insulation problem. And I said, kudos to that heating contractor for not selling you a piece of equipment that was not going to work, was only going to make him money. So I respected that. And those are the type of people you want in your home that are going to be able to walk away and say, we don't have the solution for you. You should call someone who does. And so
they didn't offer to try to insulate it or any of that.
That company I think just did heating. So I don't know who it was.
Handed that football.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Another call we just had was a gentleman or a female, I shouldn't say. It was through an email, so I don't really know. And they emailed and said that they have cold drafts coming through their outlets, and they'd like to have somebody come and assess it. And so I looked up the address, and it was a small little house at 6,000 square feet. So I didn't know if there was an airplane in there, but it's a big mansion, and it's only within the last 20 years it's been built. So I really had to respond and say, look, the state offers a no-cost assessment. This is not going to fix your problem. We need to charge to come out to the home because it's such a large home. We're going to need 2 people. We're going to need 2 blower doors. Just even measuring the house and investigating it, I'm certain it's going to have 2 or more heating systems. This is more than just put a little gasket on your outlet. The house has been probably built to code, right? It's a mansion. The price fit the square footage.
That's a lot to heat.
Yeah, and he came back and said, no, I found another company that'll do the no-cost one. I'm like, no, okay, I don't think there'll be a lot of diagnostics there. And if it's a heating company, they're probably going to try to sell you a heating upgrade. And if it's an insulation company, they probably will offer you an insulation upgrade. We were going to offer you diagnostics. So it's hard to fathom really when you think of heat loss and comfort. You have the heat production. So in many homes, that's a furnace. That's the production. A lot of times that's in the basement. You have the distribution. So the ductwork is going to get it out there. We don't know how well that ductwork is going to get it out there. All those turns add up to equivalent length, we call it. So you can have a few turns and a few boots, and you can have 100 foot of equivalent length trying to get that heat to that one room. And the real end result is how much is it throwing out in cubic foot per minute out of that supply register? What's the temperature? What's the velocity? And where that's dumping it, typically there's only one thermostat per furnace. So it's the one room is going to tell the furnace the rest of the house is fine. So, and then the third part of the component is the retention of the heat. So we have the production, the distribution, and then the retention of the heat. And in the wintertime or the summertime, it's then the retention of the cool air. So those 3 components take a little time, and each home is different to be able to diagnose that home. But all depends on what your budget are and what your goals are. But the mansion is not teed up for an energy assessment from Wise Home Energy right now. So
okay, well, who knows? I mean, they may come back to you.
They may come back. But to go devote 8 hours of people walking around the home is just not enough for the state no-cost assessment. So each one, even though we offer that, I can do it remotely. You can give me the energy bills, and I can kind of look at your energy usage and do a remote energy audit with a few pictures. I can do that. But
hey, real quick before we go any further, let's tell everybody who you are, what Wise Home Energy is, contact information, what you're all about. Kind of like Wise Home Energy 101.
Absolutely. So Wise Home Energy, we're celebrating our 15th year in business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are a diagnostic and install firm. So we really design the solutions, and then we install the solutions. And we are looking at energy is one component. The state offers no-cost energy assessments that Wise is a participating contractor in the program. So we come out and do an assessment, but we want to look at really what you want to fix in the home as far as comfort, durability, health and safety, indoor air quality. We want to look at all these things, and there's really 100 tests we can do. We can come into a home and do a visual inspection, and then typically with New York State, as we often say, we'll do a no-cost blower door test. Typically, if the situation in the house is reasonable size, a 6,000 square foot house is not a reasonable sized home to do a no-cost blower door test. And then we provide a report showing all the things that we would recommend upgrading, matching it up with your goals, and then we match it up with state grant rebates and incentives. So for everybody, there's rebates for certain items depending on the condition and the age and efficiency of the home. And then for some people, maybe that are mid or lower income, they have some additional rebates. So there's something for everybody. But the key is that diagnosis. So you can visit us on the web at wisehomeenergy.com, or you can call or text us at 585-270-5836, and we can have a 15-minute conversation to talk about your goals and what our process is and see if it's a fit for you.
Definitely a worthwhile thing to do. It's a no-pressure situation, and these rebates, it should be noted, come through a New York State agency, if you've never heard of it, called NYSERDA, right?
That's right.
And this is a program that you have already paid for.
That's right. It's on your utility bill, and we access that state one, and then sometimes each individual utility will have a rebate. So you typically can't use both. They call that double dipping because it's the same pot of money. So we try to look at it and figure out what the best path is for you, and that's really we're the guide along the way, and it depends on what you want to do. And we had another lady. I think I talked about this a year or so ago. She called and had another one of these private equity firms out, and they insulated the attic, and so my rep went up there and pulled back and saw that the top plate was not air sealed, and he came down and told her it wasn't air sealed, and she called the company, and they gave her some hooey of that they're not supposed to air seal attics, and they don't when there's insulation, and you don't want to tighten up the home too much, which is completely ridiculous. If I had him here in person, I would certainly call him to task on that.
This is a standing joke here on the program, folks, if you haven't heard. The standard refrain is, you don't want your home to be too tight.
That's right. It's interesting. She had some issues. It was probably, I'm trying to think, it was about a 20-30-year-old home, and there were some eyebrow roofs, these little bump out windows. You'll see them back on bump out sliding glass doors. You'll have this little area, and so she had some cold there, and there was a skylight up in the attic. And so skylights, the fiberglass is on the 3 sides of the wall or 4 sides of the wall, and it falls off. So we recommend foaming that. So she didn't want to air seal her attic. The other company told her they wouldn't come back and air seal the attic. So she called the other day and was complaining. And I said, well, I'll run over to the home. It's close to our office. And, she said, yeah, no, I'm getting ice. And I didn't have all the data in front of me. I sort of knew this was the house, and it's like, and then the company that did the kind of with Scammeroosker, I'll call it, was in there doing more work on a different item, and I was thinking, we told her, she knows that they did not do what they said. They did not honor their contract, and she's back with them, and then she's looking at me saying, why do I have ice? None of my other neighbors have ice. And it's like, well, the people in your basement, you should go ask them. They're the ones who didn't do the work. We just told you we're going to foam the skylight. And we'll have to go back and look at the emails. But it really is interesting that you I always say we never want to do half an attic, and it's tough for people to understand, because how can I own that space if I only do half of it? Imagine you getting a cut on your arm and you've got 20 stitches you need, and the doctor's like, the budget, the health insurance, we're only giving you 10. Which side of the gash do you want stitched up? And you can go along your way, and you'll be running around saying, I'm still bleeding. What's wrong with that doctor?
Yeah, but think of the savings.
That's right, absolutely. So those stories are, they're frustrating because it's it's something we want to fix, and so it's tough when when people just want to do half the job. We usually walk away, or we can do sign offs that say we don't think this is going to work, but at least you have this half done. But normally we just walk away. Had another one where this client called in. Well, it was from like a year ago. She has a block home, and it's a tough home, and then to add challenges beyond that is it's knotty pine. And knotty pine or tongue and groove, it looks great. I love that stuff. It's great for cabins and cottages. It's not great. It's not an air barrier. And was out there and did a blower door test, and you walk her around and you can feel the air leaking.
Yikes.
And so I can get into the knee walls. It's kind of a Cape Cod, so I can foam that. And I sort of have a plan where I can kind of do 80% of it. She doesn't want to rip the wood down. And I don't know if I want to do the 80%. I can get it, but already, I look at the furnace and I say, your furnace is oversized. And she says it's only 2 years old. And I walk out of that home and I think to myself, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news anymore. I mean, they're shooting the messenger. I'm the person who's saying it's already oversized. So when I properly tighten down that attic, that's going to even make it more oversized. So it's interesting in that regards that you have to decide that you want that trusted advice, and some people walk away from us. Some people just do the insulation. And go and get a furnace afterwards, and unbeknownst to us, they don't call us, and then they get an oversized furnace. And there's a calculation, a manual J load calculation for the house. We also look at the actual energy usage, and we can kind of look at how much you're using. If you buy that car off the lot, it says it's 35 miles per gallon. That doesn't mean you're going to get 10 gallons and drive 350 miles. You have to go drive the miles, fill the tank, and do the math and figure out what you really got. Is it 30 miles per gallon? I think some years ago we had an automaker that couldn't make their MPG mandatory, so they had some little devices on the car that would help fudge the results. So,
nice, yeah.
So that's some of the challenges. Is we're looking at how those components come together.
Why don't you tell them why an oversized furnace? If you're thinking you're cold in the home, you're not comfortable, so I'll just we'll get some more heat going here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what a simple Band-Aid type solution might appeal to people. Tell them why that doesn't work.
It really is. So we have ductwork usually that is matched up to the system, and so it has to be the right size for the system. But as it turns on, if you buy an $80,000 furnace and it has 72,000 BTUs of output, it only has one stage. So on a mild 50-degree day, it's going to turn on, hit the thermostat, tell it I'm warm enough, and it won't hit the other areas, and it won't warm up the surfaces of the home. So the walls, I think of the 5 characteristics or features of home comfort, or comfort for a human being, is called the mean radiant temperature. And so it's the mean radiant temperature of your exterior surfaces. So we go into homes with the infrared cameras and we look at that. And if that wall is cold, you will be cold. Doesn't matter what the air temperature is, because the wall is going to pull the heat off you. So if you've ever been to a campfire and it's too hot and you step behind a willing friend or a tree, the minute you're out of that radiant heat, the heat is gone. Mm-hmm. So you're not feeling the heat of the combustion. You're feeling the radiant heat of the flame. And kind of the same thing in a home. It's pulling that heat off you. So a properly sized or modulating furnace giving the proper heat to the proper load. So the load is how much your home needs at that particular time. So on a 50, 60-degree day, it doesn't need a lot. And if you're throwing this 4 times the load at it, it's just an up and down experience, and your furnace is on and off. And as the furnace starts up, it's not in its most efficient stage. And as it shuts down, it's not its most efficient state. So it's rarely running at its peak efficiency. So you're having losses. It's on and off too often, and it bugs people, the noise on and off, and but it's more of those temperatures.
The temperatures swing, right?
Right. It's up and down, and sometimes there's balancing on ducts. There's dampers, but sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's drywalled basement ceilings, and duct balancing is a whole other science, and it's not a service that's really included with an energy audit. That takes some measurement and testing throughout the home. And really, you go into a home, and a lot of these registers, people don't even know where the registers are. So we kind of have them map it out for us, because if they're behind couches and under beds, there's not too much we can do about it. So sometimes that's the way what the house gives you for what you want to use the room for. But that's it. We want to look at all those things, and it's, I don't want to say that you have to change everything, but we can't just say it's one thing. And sometimes we alter a system, and we have to monitor how it works. Similar to, if you go to a doctor, you get a test and your blood pressure's high. They give you a med, and they don't say go home and never come back. They say, well, let's come back and retest your blood pressure, because that med for 80% of the people will work, but for 20% it may not work. We might have to try something different. We might have to alter your diet. We might have to have you exercise more, or things like that. So there's the diagnosis, there's the implementation of the improvement, and then there's the testing afterwards to find out what's really going on. So
the kind of work that you do at Wise Home Energy is unusual in that this isn't the kind of service you get from the typical HVACR organization.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's
much more systemic approach.
Yeah, they say if to someone with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So
right.
If it's an HVAC company, they're probably going to recommend an HVAC upgrade for you. And we want to look at the whole thing. So we were at a home the other day, and they wanted an assessment. We offered them the assessment because they had an attic problem with insulation destroyed and squirrels, and I got to the home, and it was had a lot of different levels. It was an unusual home a type of home that I'd never been in. It was kind of a colonial with a Cape Cod, and then another room. So it was, and so we looked at it and did the blower door, and it was through the roof, and they were expecting a child in the next 6 months, and they really want to fix this. And so we're really just kind of looking at the furnace, looking at the hot water tank, the efficiency, but it's not their core focus. We're just going to kind of take a look at them. And then I realized there's a lot of heat in the basement. And suddenly I said, this is an oversized furnace probably, even though the home's leaky. And we have a temporize problem. So on your furnace plate, they'll have an acceptable temperature range. So the return air is coming back from the areas we've heated, and it's a cooler temperature because it's now time to heat it again. We measure that temperature, and then we measure the supply temperature. And the split, we have to match it up to the furnace rating plate. So a dirty filter will make that temp rise go high. So if you have a high temp rise, you're stressing out the equipment. You're could be damaging the heat exchanger. You're shortening the life of the furnace. So I had to come up and say, hey, I know you want us here for that, but this furnace is older, and we do have this problem. So as we tighten up this home, it's gonna get worse. Let's try to make some modifications. Let's maybe try to dump some heat. They know that the furnace is older, so at some point they're going to replace, but let's properly size it, and then you won't have this problem. And usually what happens also is it's very loud. When the ductwork and the pressures and temperatures are not within spec, it's loud. So it's some people become used to that. Some people don't like it at all. And so that sometimes that's don't shoot the messenger. They were great about it. They understood it. It wasn't my fault, but we're more to educate them. You don't need to do this now, but when you do, let's do the right size. And in short term, let's see if we can come up with a solution. We might be able to modify, a ductwork setup that would make that temp rise more within spec. So those are the types of things that we're looking at that we don't hear a lot that other people are looking at. And really the diagnosis before the implementation is one of the biggest things you can do.
So just for clarity, Wise Home Energy, first of all, you do the diagnostics. And we've talked about the blower door, and you can consult an earlier program on the podcast or whatever, how that works. But you do that, and then you do the walkthrough, you do the inspection on the place, and you handle whatever needs to be done, because this is, again, a systemic approach, whatever it is, whether it's replacement of the furnace, whether it's modification of ductwork, whether it's insulation, you do all that. You come up with a systemic solution. The bottom line being so that you'll be comfortable, so you'll be cool in the summer,
exactly.
Warm in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. We want you to look down the road 5 years. It's really a 20-year decision you're about to make, whether it's insulation or whether it's a heating and cooling system. You should look at it as a 20-year decision, because you're going to want that to last for 20 years. You don't want to buy a new heating system or insulation and have it last 3 years. And you want it to provide all those things you want: comfort, reliability, energy efficiency, health and safety, indoor air quality. So all these things coming together, there's a lot of moving parts. It's a system. It's go and take your car and you could guess and change the tires or do a balancing, but all those things come together: the alignment, the brakes, the shocks, the seat cushions. Everything is related to the comfort of that ride and the safety of that ride. So we're looking at all those things. Sometimes they take more investigation. But at least that no-cost assessment that you're already paid for gives you a nice starting point. And 90% of the time that covers everything really we need to do for the type of upgrades that the client wants to make.
And you also know how to navigate, the grants and other programs through the state, through NYSERDA, which is a taxpayer-funded agency of the state.
Right.
So one way or the other, you've paid for this, so you might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have two paths. You can come in. We want you to look at the income-based, and if you're not eligible for that, there's an assessment for everybody. So give us a call. It's 585-270-5836, or find us on the web at wisehomeenergy.com.
Jeff Flaherty, Wise Home Energy, the Wise Home Energy program, a monthly production of the WYSL stations, the voice of liberty. Thanks for listening, and get the podcast if you missed the show. Always available at WYSL1040.com. See you next time.